Emerging leaders, lead 2000 students. We have another Leadership Slam guest speaker. His name is Michael Carter, and I had the fortunate opportunity to work with Michael about how many years ago? Was it 5? 4?
4 years ago.
Okay, so about 4 years ago. He was on our Dean's Advisory Board for the College of Liberal Arts and Education, and we were doing some retention initiatives, how to get students to stay at the university. He had some great ideas to help us with that. And so we invited him today to talk about his leadership expertise and his experience. He's an alum of the university 2 times over, and he's going to tell you all about himself. He likes to be more informal, so I hope you guys have lots of questions, and he's going to expand our leadership capacity. So, Michael.
Good afternoon. We're going to have a conversation, and so it's really, there's no note-taking, there is no PowerPoint presentation that in fact I'm going to give, and I wasn't sure how many students were going to show up, so my family came, which was really nice. My sisters, both Pat and Peggy came. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, but I grew up here, and so I went to Central High School and finished in 1968, so I'm old. Although I'd like to think that I'm somewhat a little preserved, which is not me as the DNA issue in terms of family. But I went to school here back in the 60s. So a really turbulent time from 68 to 72, and then came back and got an MBA right around 76 to 78, I think was the time frame. But what I'd like to do in the time that we're going to spend together is I'd like to have a conversation, and since you are emerging leaders, about leadership. And share with you anecdotally. Please come on in.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, you gotta stand up though. Right in the back of the room. Because you're late. Did you get you something to eat?
Yes, I was here already.
You were here already?
I was here on time.
You were here on time? So don't bust my chops. I won't. I've been married 40 years. I've kind of learned some things you should say, don't say. But as I was sharing with you that, over my career, I've had a unique career in terms of, again, the things that I've done. I've made just about every mistake in the book. I've managed people since I was 14. And now I'm at a point where, again, I try not to manage anyone or anything, and really just have investments from the standpoint of, again, really more passive investments. But I've experienced, and I think it's one of the best teachers, working with a lot of bad leaders. And I think that when you talk about the learning experience, that's one of the best scenarios you can ask from, because there's very few good leaders. There are very few people that you're going to meet and that you're going to work with or work for who are really good leaders, because it takes a special blend of a manager, I think, to really be an effective leader. And so we'll talk about that. But I want to give you a little background information so you get a sense in terms of, again, how my basic positions in life when it comes to interacting with people, working within the corporate setting, or being a serial entrepreneur, which is in fact what I've done in my career, kind of where I've come from. So I mentioned I grew up in Detroit, and so we grew up in a family of 7. And our dad was a janitor, so surely there was not a lot of resources to go around. And we had a mother who was a wild child. Our mother was quite an interesting lady, independent, feisty, and she started having children at 16, and all she wanted to do was to have children. And she's no longer with us. But that was really her focus, and so her lasting legacy was to look at wanting to make sure that her kids were close. And so, my siblings, I just shared with them just the other day that I was going to be speaking. I do think it's important to kind of be humble and kind of keep your ego in check. So I didn't make a big deal of it, but they showed up. And so, again, I'm grateful. But she taught us the importance of, again, the need to look at being close. Because at the end of the day, that's all we had, was one another. And particularly our family, because again, there were just not a lot of resources. that we had in order to be able to make a go of it. How was the party? So there were a lot of resources to go around, and so that need of, and I think that's a blessing of being in a big family, and it's a blessing of having diversity in terms of girls and boys, because as the second oldest boy, and having 4 of the sisters, you really do learn how to interact with girls. And that's really important. That's really important from the standpoint of, again, learning about relationships. So even at 65, I still am really slow on the mark when it comes to interacting with my wife. I'm still stupid and say stupid things. But I gotta tell you, they paved the mark for me. They paved the way for me. So I don't think I've made as many mistakes. And that not only because there's no real difference between, I think, dealing with, again, your personal relationships to some degree and business relationships when you talk about leadership. But my sisters said, no, you need to know how to dance. You can't be this bumbling, awkward person in terms of preparing for life. So, get on our feet, step on our feet. That one is the one that did that. She's younger than I am, but step on my feet. So she taught me how to dance. Now this seems real simplistic maybe, but at the end of the day, guess what? I learned how to dance. So I wasn't socially awkward, okay, as I became a teenager. And I wasn't socially awkward as I became an adult when it came to social experiences where, again, people were out dancing. And you were dancing with Argentinians, and you were dancing with people from Belgium, you were dancing with people from Germany. Because I traveled throughout the world, and I lived in Europe for a couple of years. And so, blessings. But blessings were, again, because of, again, the environment that I grew up in. From a leadership standpoint, I had a leader, my mother, who in fact talked about this issue of, again, the sharing, the collaborative giving with one another. And when you talk about growing up, particularly in our family, there was, from a material acquisition standpoint, we didn't. Hi, how are you? Good. My name is Michael. What's your name?
Alonzo?
Alonzo. Welcome, Alonzo. Did you get you something to eat?
No. Well, beforehand, but...
Okay, would you like something to eat?
No, thank you.
Okay, sure. Just want to make sure you're settled, man. Okay, Jen, you want to get Alonzo something to eat, man? Want a beer, maybe?
I mean, sure.
Too far.
Start part, not start. But anyways, give a little background on me and my family. So, going back to the issue in terms of, again, material acquisition issues when I was growing up. Talked about this issue of wanting to be, it needed to be collaborative because we didn't have a lot of money. And so I never had a bedroom. With 7 kids, second oldest boy, I always slept on the couch. And so when you talk about growing up and you talk about at least material goals, all I ever wanted was my own bed. And I wanted a stereo system. So I didn't care about cars, I didn't care about housing, I just wanted to have my own bed and a stereo system. And so, I transitioned and went and lived with my aunt and uncle who were childless when I was about 16 for a couple of 3 years. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I really did. And so everything that's come since that time, Jen takes me to dinner, we go to a very nice dinner, and I have a nice bottle of red wine. Blessing. It's just blessing, it's just wonderful. So I'm just grateful for a lot of the things that, in fact, that I have. And so when you talk about leadership, at an early age, I really was able to decipher to some degree, although I wasn't cognizant of, really people who were good leaders. My mother was a good leader because of the values that she instilled in us. She really did. And that was, again, the need to look at being collaborative as a family. And so when you talk about leadership traits, there's 3 or 4 traits that I think are just critical. And in your life, you've had people that have impacted your life with those who have these traits. Integrity. You've got to have people that, in fact, you work with, you work for, that are people of integrity. You gotta have people that in fact you work with or work for. You have to be people who are gonna be honest. You have to look at, in fact, please, what in? That's okay. You have to look at being a person, okay, again, who's gonna be honest, and has, again, a good work ethic. And I think one of the most critical pieces, besides those other attributes, is you gotta be able to check your ego at the door. Because in a setting, whether it's family, whether it's corporate setting, whether you're the boss, whether you're employed, you gotta be able to check your ego at the door. When we talk about trying to look at accomplishing the objectives of the family, the department, the corporation, where again, it's about the collaboration piece. And too often, when you're talking about leaders who try to use, again, power, because they have, quote, the title, they have the authority, but they're not respected. Because, again, they think that, again, that they have all the answers. You talk about leadership. That's really one of the real Achilles challenges that a lot of leaders, in fact, have. And so if there's nothing else that, in fact, again, I can share with you that's really critical as you matriculate and grow and develop. And you think about what's important in life, particularly in terms of my need to look at being a leader at home, my community, because it's important, particularly here in this city. And if you don't live here and you live other places, same holds true. But Lord knows, we need to have people that are engaged to look at trying to make a difference, particularly in our urban areas. And there's a need to look at having people that are engaged, where they want to look at giving back. But we need people, again, that can check their egos at the door. It's about others. It's about, again, a good, strong work ethic. It's about, again, being collaborative. It's about, again, being a person of integrity. You can't take things that don't belong to you. It's not cool. I never forget this one. I've had a number of businesses, from having health clubs and spas to construction companies. Still have a construction company. And I went over someone's house, one of my employees' house. This is when I had a spa and a health club, and I had 20 employees. You know, $5 million investment. I saw some of my products in her bathroom, and she said, and again, I try to be very, again, diplomatic in these scenarios. And so I came out after, and this was a social event. She was having a party. And I said, well, Lulu, how did this stuff land in your bathroom? She said, well, your sister gave it to me. And I'm going, my sister? And so, as much as I love my sister, the reality is that that's not cool, that my sister would take my inventory and give it to someone else. Things that I paid for, thinking it was okay. It just wasn't. It's my sister. And so, we do have people that have this kind of entitlement issue. And I really feel very strongly about the need, particularly for your generation. And I don't mean to sound like an old fogey, but I am. So we call it like it is. But there really is a general consensus that a lot of folks in my generation think, you guys need to check your damn ego at the door, because you really do have this sense of entitlement. You got folks staying at home to the 26, 27 years of age, versus getting out there on their own. That was never a question when we were growing up. We knew we couldn't stay home. That was not even a question. At high school, you went to the service or you were out of there. And more critically, we had to support the family. First house my parents bought, I gave them the money for the house. And so, you know, when we talk about that leadership piece, the issue of ownership is so important and so critical that, you know, as you, again, think about yourself and who you are and what you want to do in life, you gotta own You gotta own your success. And owning your success is really about looking, and this is very tough to do. Because again, you guys have already made the big step. You've taken this class, which demonstrates that you are already concerned about wanting to be better as a person, wanting to be an effective leader. And again, this transcends business, personal relationship. That's the nice thing about something like this class. This stuff works on in both domains. The stuff that you do in business, also the stuff that you do with your siblings or your girlfriends, your boyfriends, or your husband and your wives. But you gotta, if you haven't, you think about your continued growth and development. I'm a person of integrity. If I say I'm going to do something, do I do it? If I say that, in fact, I'm going to be there at 8:15, I'm there at 8:15. And not making excuses. And if you can't be there at 8:15 because for whatever reason, guess what? You call and say, I'm running late. And you do that consistently. You do that, you make that part of your day. If class is at 8 o'clock, you're here at 10 minutes to 8. If you got an assignment, in fact, that needs to be completed, you can't leave until it's done. That's what's expected. No excuses. So again, my generation, old fogies, we're going, young folks, you gotta step up your game in terms of the whole responsibility piece. Because you guys are so smart. You're so bright. Your minds, your communicative skills, much better. You know, I mean, surely we look at you guys and we see these little microprocessors in your head, and we're going like, whoa, you know, slow down, you're going a little bit too fast, right? Okay. And you know, we're leaving society to you. But protect our society. Protect the next series of years in terms of what's going to happen to, again, the future of our community, the future of this country. Because there's no greater country. It just is. I traveled to Asia, Europe, Africa, South America, in a lot of different wonderful cities. And my favorite place is Bangkok, Thailand. It's a crazy place, but I loved it because the people there are very warm. The cost of living is nothing. You can go in and get fitted for a tuxedo and it'll be ready in 4 or 5 hours, and it only costs you $50. And you can go have a massage for $5. And they're very service oriented, like a lot of Asian places. I digress. The point of the matter is, there's no greater country in terms of the opportunity to do well. This living, breathing document, a constitutional document that we have, a Declaration of Independence, okay, that we have, no other country, again, that provides you with opportunities to do great things. But from a leadership standpoint, you got to own it. From a leadership standpoint, you've got to look at, again, demonstrating, as I said, those traits that people will respect. And people respect people who keep their commitment, because they are people of integrity, they're people of character, they're people who are honest, they're people who are punctual, people who, in fact, again, work hard. And people who, again, they come and say, let's talk about working together. And they look at you. They're not playing with their phone. They look at and they have eye contact. And they listen. Okay? They don't try to talk over you. They listen. And they smile. And they'll say, well, I hear you, but can I share with you maybe a position that's maybe a little different than yours? So they try to be diplomatic when they say things, versus saying, you're full of crap. I can say that here, can I? There's your crumb. I used to work in the factory when I was here too, so I know some other words, but I won't say them. My wife would be embarrassed. mad at me. But so I hope is this resonating? I don't want to be talking above or below. Is this resonating with what I'm saying? Okay. So, you know, when I came to U of D, going back to my kind of life journey about leadership, you know, I had these parents, I had this supportive system, my uncles who were, and aunts who were educators, and I was a very quiet kid. I mean, I really didn't say much at all. But I had people that loved me. And that was really the thing that I was really fortunate. Because, in particular with some of my relatives, they saw something in me that maybe I didn't even see. Because in a lot of ways, I wasn't ready for prime time. We lost a sister to leukemia, our oldest sister, and I was a basket case from the time I was about 15 to about 17. So when I was a freshman senior in high school, I finally woke up after 2 years of being absolutely brain dead, or a year and a half, where I thought about college, right? And I was an okay student. You know, I was your C plus B minus student, so I wouldn't, you know, surely again, 36 in ACT and, you know, enrolled in AP classes and any of that stuff. But I was again a hard worker, right? But again, very quiet and very respectful. And I had again an uncle who I lived with, who was supportive of my wanting to transition from high school to college. And if it wasn't for him, I'm not sure where I would have landed. I inherently know that I would have done something in my life because, you know, not having had that bedroom rather, I mean, I used to dream on this couch about being successful. Knowing that it would not be overnight success, knowing I would have to pay huge dividends, knowing that I would have to look at it again, sacrifice. But I was willing to do that, whatever it took. And so it was my uncle that truly made a difference in terms of getting me squared away and enrolled in U of D. And I was the first, I was a participant in a program called Project 100. This was the first class. I don't know if you've ever heard of this program before. Have you ever heard of Project 100? Okay, for those who haven't, we had a rebellion, a riot back in the 60s. And one of the things that took place was that at that time, Father Karen, who was our university president, and New Detroit, this is an organization, a civic organization. I'm not sure they're still around, are they? Still around. But you had some leaders that came together and said, you know, we had folks that, you know, have literally, you know, torn down the city, who are angry. And they're angry and mad about their plight. And then you talk about the survival and the growth and development of any group. If you look at any group's development and growth, it starts with education. And so to the degree that we want to talk about options and solutions for trying to help any particular group or, you know, a community, we need to focus on education. So they started a program called Project 100. So the rebellion was in '67, and this program started in 1968. So I was one of the first 100 kids, and it wasn't just kids of color. We had kids that were of European descent, white kids too. And so what they did was they provided us with tutorial support, financial support. Some kids stayed in dorms, but most of us were, you know, working kids. Again, we were gone from home. We had to work. I worked 2 jobs. Worked at the factory, I worked at the plant, and I worked as a lifeguard. In fact, I had more money at that time, at 18, than I ever had well, I got more money now. But I didn't have to share with anybody. But I did. I mean, that was the good old days. Because I could work 12-hour days at factory, and I was making $16 an hour. For an 18-year-old, I was just barely 18. $16 an hour. I was rich. I had checks I couldn't forget. I would get my sisters, you know, in fact, they used to make my lunch. You know? You know, I paid them, they were going like, oh yeah. But I did, I was rich. Anyway, going back to UD. So they started this program and brought 100 of us here. And again, as I said, I was an average student. I always had, again, this issue, or always had an interest in wanting to do something with my life. And I'm going to back up a little bit. I had a counselor. I went to Central High School. And again, I was, as I said, I was truly asleep. And I was in mourning in some ways. We lost my sister. We were very close. And I went to this counselor right around my freshman year, my beginning year, my senior year, and we were talking about, you know, what's going to happen after high school. And he said, well, you know, based on your background and your record, I see 3 options for you: Ford, General Motors, or Chrysler. Which at that time was bad, because again, they were hiring full production. And again, as much as I was relatively soft-spoken, you know, I always had a spine, and I was going, well, first of all, you haven't talked to me since I've been here. I met you my freshman year, now here I am a senior. It's the first time we talk about my future. And I said to him, I said, you know, I don't need your help. And that's when, in fact, again, I had the conversation with my uncle. And my uncle helped me get into college. And I went back to that high school counselor, who was still at my same high school, after I finished, graduated with honors from U of T, and we had a conversation. And and it was a conversation that was not heated, and I tried to be as professional as possible, but I talked about how, in fact, he should consider developing a close relationship with the kids that he served. Because he didn't know. He had no clue in terms of, again, what I might have wanted out of life. And, you know, test scores don't necessarily, your ACT or your SAT, they're not necessarily, again, they can't, what's the term I'm looking for? They're not predetermined for many times success. And I think that that's what the data is saying now. That's not to say that, you know, if you don't have, you won't have challenges maybe if you're talking about taking someone in that has a very low ACT. However, I firmly believe, and I think that the research has pointed out, that you've got someone who wants something really bad. I don't care what ACT or SAT score they have. They'll find a way to make a go of it. And in some ways, I was that kind of kid. Because when I came here to this university, I slept in the library. And I worked with those tutors who had to look at, again, work with me to do some things remedially. And again, I graduated with honors. And so as I shared with that counselor, I said, there's an injustice. You know, mad at you, but at the end of the day, be considerate next time when you have conversation with kids. You know, tears were in his eyes, and I was going, you just can't do that. That's not appropriate. It really isn't. And again, it goes back to that leadership piece in terms of, you know, really, I think, listening to people, really I think, believing in folks, and not what you want them to do, because you look at their records and you see C+, B-, grades. But to sit but ask the question, what do you want to do in life? Not go to General Motors or go to Ford or Chrysler. Yeah, ask me that. You know, that's what you should be doing. That's what I see you doing. And they did that to a lot of kids. I wasn't an exception to the rule. I don't expect anybody to feel sorry for me. You're going to ask me a
I
question?
was surprised they didn't suggest the military. It was 1968.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean,
That's okay, no.
Some of your generation said.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He didn't. He didn't.
Vietnam was going on.
Yeah. Guess maybe he was a pacifist. I don't know. I don't know. And I was really lucky I didn't go because, again, I had a student deferment. But we had the lottery, and my lottery number was high enough. Quick story is that my family, they were gonna kidnap me and take me to Canada if my number was called, but they were gonna.
These kids didn't know what the lottery was.
Did you guys know what the lottery was?
No.
All right,
Yeah.
so back when we had the Vietnam War, back in the 60s, late 60s, well, 60s, mid-60s, late, early 70s, they needed bodies, and they needed particularly boys. So if you were in school, if you weren't in school, you were gone, not unless you were physically unable to serve. But if you were in college, okay, or you were, over draft age, then you didn't have to worry about it because in my case, you had a student deferment. However, because of the toll of number of young men were being killed, particularly in the late 60s, 70s, at that time, John said, I don't care if you're in school or not, we need to look at having more men serve. So they said, we're going to have a lottery. And even if you had a student deferment, so everybody, all the student deferment people were put in, just like the lottery that you have here. They pulled numbers, and they took all the people that had numbers, I think, under 156 or something like that, 136. I only did it one time, just did it for 1 year. And so I was really fortunate that I had a high number, 176 or something like that. But going back to, again, U of D, came here and worked my tail off. And leadership. I had a counselor. Her name was Dolores Davis. She, in fact, was my sister's teacher when she was in elementary school. Dolores Davis is about this tall, a little bitty thing. Cute as a button, she really was. And when you talk about leadership, this woman, I like to say that she literally saved my life. So again, there are a lot of people that played a role in terms of my development. A lot of people played a role in terms of my growth. But Dolores, particularly in terms of college, was instrumental because as a working Slav going to school, didn't like school that much, really didn't like school that much, but I knew it was a means to an end. I was cognizant of the fact that I knew without a degree, there was not much I could do with life. I never did really like school. I like school now, but I'm too darn old. I can't remember anything. And things start falling off the pages, so it's not good. But I love learning, and I wish I had now. Okay, I really wish I had applied myself a little bit better. But mine was to get the degree because I wanted to get out and get on with life and make some money, get married, have a family. Okay, so it was nothing more than a process. But the bottom line is that I really, that first semester I was here, oh, God, it was hard. It was really hard. This little bitty lady would call me every night, Monday through Friday, and ask me if, in fact, I had been to my tutorial sessions, asked me if I had studied for the day. So you talk about guardian angels? That woman was a guardian angel that allowed me, in fact, to wake up and grow up. Because what she would say was that at the end of the day, Michael, get your degree. Get your degree. You can play and have fun, because a lot of my buds, they would be at do we still have the Raft Scholar?
We do, but it's now called the Grounds Coffee House and no alcohol. I spent some time at the Rascal Thursday nights.
You guys should have been back with us back.
And you could drink at 18.
We could, yeah, and we did some other things too. But, oh boy, that was fun.
You read a lot. That's what you did.
Yeah. Well, I was at that point in time, and so her point was, you get on with life. And it took me a semester to get myself together. Just like it took me, just a week. I was just telling Jen, when I came here, the first week, I had an English teacher who, in fact, said, we're going to go outside and we're going to have class. And we're going to sit on the grass. Excuse me? Because when I grew up, we dressed with not so much shirt and suit and ties, But we dress very, very, again,
Sunday best.
yeah,
You
very
said there
nicely.
was- Remember you said there's skirts in school, we couldn't wear pants into the 70s.
Yeah, and so I had $60 pair of Vans on. This is a long time ago, guys. I had alligator shoes on. And we're talking about go sit in the grass. I had gabardine shirts. Okay, we were, Stetson hats. So you talking about making a transition? Let me tell you, it took me 3 days. I made the transition, and for the next 4 years, I had nothing but hush puppies, blue jeans, and sweatshirts. I didn't own a suit, nothing else. But again, those are the things that happen when you talk about making the transition. I know you've done the same. But Dolores Davis played a role in terms of, again, my realizing the need to make that transition, to get on with life. And to not want to go hang with my buds who were playing cards and, having a good time. Because I didn't have the time. I had to work, and I had to get my studies if I was going to look at getting my degree. So when we talk about my UD experience, I want to now move to talk about business stuff. The leadership piece, again, good leaders listen. Dolores Davis listened. At 10 o'clock, that's what time I got home from my job. She called. How was your day? And was real specific. So was it a history tutor that you saw, or was it accounting class that you were talking, that you're studying for, or whatever it was? She did that, I couldn't have made it. But I got myself together that, again, when it was time for me to now look at working with my siblings, I owned it. Because it was time for me now to step up. So again, one of the takeouts that I, in fact, want to look at, making sure that hopefully you guys will look at, I think grabbing. This is the issue of giving back. The need for you to look at being the Dolores Davises of the world. It's so critical. It really is. And we don't get out of this life without, in fact, somebody typically lending a hand and lending hands so that, in fact, you can rise. And when you talk about people like Dolores Davis, who is I think not one of the, and I saw her years later professionally. She was working at some Southern historical black school. I went on and on about how much I loved her and how much she's done for me, and she was going, but that's what we're here to do. So to her, it was no big deal. It was no big deal. And so again, legacy-wise, there's a comment, there's a saying that my uncle used to give me, which I'm giving to you. It's not going to cost you anything. But I do hope that it resonates, and you'll take it with you. And that was, you've got to put something back in the pot. And when you talk about leadership, and again, I've talked about the attributes of good leaders. Good leaders put something back in the pot. They make sure that, again, it's not about just you, that you're leaving something for others. When you get hired as a manager, you should be looking at your replacement. And that's putting something back in the pot. That's wanting to look at, again, making sure that that next generation is going to continue to build on the things that you, in fact, have established. So, UAD, I owe my life to. I really do. I met my wife here for 44 years. We've had 2 children. Both kids went to the University of Michigan. One's 37, the one's 33. I have a wonderful grandson who's apple of my eyes, who has the same name as his grandfather, who looks like his grandfather, who got a big belly like his grandfather, and it's just precious. And so, again, none of that would have, grandchildren, children, without having met my wife, without having had, again, experience from UD. So you've got to give back. You've got to You gotta write a check to you. You need to write a check when you're in a position to do that. And it might be for $5. Okay? But you need to write a check, and you need to give back. So I challenge you to do that. Because there's such a need. This is a university. When I was here, when Pat was here, man, I think we had maybe 10,000 kids, 10,000 students. It was much larger. Right? And so they have educated, and they have, in fact, again, provided for people who provided, for themselves and for their families. We need to continue this legacy. You want to look at giving back. Business-wise, we're okay. Because I really want to say some time so you guys, you folks can ask me some questions, guys. But business-wise, I'll just kind of cut to the chase and talk about, when you talk about being in business, which I've been, as I said, I currently have a commercial construction firm. We've got a staff of about 13 people, but I've had, I had a janitorial service that we started when I was, in fact, working on my MBA. That we had we did 2 of the largest banks. We did all their branches here in the city. So I've always been an entrepreneur. And again, no one in our family were business people. We had people that were educators, but I knew that I wanted to go into business. I had no clue about what business was all about. So again, when you talk about making every mistake in the book, when it comes to managing people, being in business, I really had. But it was a great training ground because I learned I learned a lot along the way. But I started business from ground zero. From incorporating the businesses to setting up systems, and great ride. But truly, it's the people that, in fact, I hired that made the organizations run. And if nothing else that I've learned as a CEO or founder of a company is the issue of being very wise and hiring the best and the brightest. And be slow to hire. Be slow to hire. Because typical in a typical interview, everybody's going to come with their A game. But you really want to look at it again, have an opportunity to check references and take your time to assess whether or not, in fact, you've got the right person that fits within an organization. Because if you're a CEO or chair, whatever, you're not keeping the operational trains going. I've been very fortunate. I've had businesses where, again, I've got great CEOs who take care of things. And couldn't do things so the business would not function without them. But I firmly believe that the ingredients that make a successful business is you hiring the best and the brightest, paying people good money, but making sure that you give them a lot of love and support, and you don't step out of their way, but you'll be there, and you're there to look at wanting to make sure that if there's things that they need, whether it's capital, whether again it's information that can help them be successful, that you're there to do that. And so, with that said, you know what, I'm going to stop, because I've been running my mouth for the last, probably half an hour, 40 minutes or so. And I'd like to hear from you in terms of whether it's questions you have about anything I've said or your take on leadership. Just have a conversation. Yes?
First let me say that you appear to have a very vast well of knowledge, so I've been itching to ask you this question since 5 minutes after you started talking. Have you ever been in a position where you were in a leadership role that was extremely challenging for you? And I really want to know how you handled it that separated you from other people who would be given the title as a leader.
I've been in those, did everybody get the question? I've been in those situations a number of times. I've been really fortunate for whatever reason. People recognize my passion for wanting to look at making things better. So, for example, I've chaired the United Way in my hometown. I've chaired, we have what's known as the National Education Foundation. We've raised $25 million that we've given to the National Public Schools. I've been on chair of a lot of organizations. Anyway, I think that particularly when things become heated, and that's what you're going to find when you talk about the issue of leadership. You've got people that are passionate about their positions, right? And you as a chair, when you have diversions or you have, again, people going at one another in terms of positions, it's really critical that you think about, again, wanting to make sure that people are heard. But at the end of the day, it is important to kind of keep control of the conversation. And that's one. Two is to always think about what's important in terms of what your objective is. You know, your objective is to run a meeting, right? Your objective is to look at trying to maybe have a conversation about a particular agenda topic, okay? And it might be 10 minutes that you allocated. And maybe there's a resolution that you want to have on that particular issue. And so here it is now, it's 12 minutes, right, 15 minutes. But you gotta bring that to a conclusion, because you're gonna start losing people. If in fact they see that, you know, things just start spinning out of control. So I think it's a matter of, when you talk about trying to deal with, if I understand your question, you know, dealing with, again, people that are again, maybe fighting, or you're having controversy, where, again, you're trying to bring the group together, that's where, again, there's a need to look at being very careful that you're not being autocratic, people are being heard, but you want to look at always rising above, because you're chair, because you're the leader, and trying to look at getting the groups to look at seeing one another's point of view. And again, that's what I'm saying, the beauty in being an effective leader is this works not only in a business setting, it works in your family. And a family is more difficult, because family is a lot of emotion, okay? And so the ability to listen, which is so hard, that's real darn hard, is just really critical as a leader. And the ability to be empathetic, not sympathetic, but empathetic in terms of, again, looking at someone as they're trying to explain, is really critical from a leadership standpoint. But at the end of the day, you gotta make a decision. You gotta get on with things. And you're not gonna always, again, and you shouldn't be concerned about pleasing people. You're there to lead. You're there to look at moving things along. And you're in a particular leadership role, you gotta understand that you will make people unhappy with some of the decisions that you make. And that comes with the territory. And you've got to also understand that leadership many times is very lonely. It's very lonely. And you got to decide if that's what you want to do. It's very, very lonely. Because when you talk about dealing with personnel issues, when you talk about dealing with very sensitive matters, you got to keep that stuff to yourself. You really do. You have to be very careful in sharing that with, again, other managers or other people. Because now it gets back to the issue of maybe integrity, where if that information were to get out, people will feel like their trust has been violated because maybe they shared something that was confidential. So again, leaders being born, bull. Leaders are developed, in my humble opinion. I'm not a socialist, I'm not a business scientist in that way. I think that they're really developed. I don't think we come into this world. I think that within There are some people that I know that because of their family upbringing, truly they've got some tools that they've been given because they have maybe supportive parents that allow them to be very good communicators, good improvisers, and so they kind of have those traits. But, you know, it's a development issue. And so classes, you know, it's good that you take this class. You get into a corporate environment, take more leadership classes. Because when you talk, if you're going into a corporate environment, and even if you do your own thing, the more is, I don't care what you do, you gotta work with people. No man is an island. You've gotta work with people. And your ability to be able to work with people, I don't care if you're making widgets, I don't care what you're doing. Your ability to work with people and work with them effectively is just really critical. Answer your question?
Yes.
Good. Other questions?
Can I say something?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna say it anyway. You guys are young, and you don't understand what Mike was telling you, because it's a cruel world out there, you guys know it. But if you're not humble, and you don't respect other people, and you don't have love in your heart, you are not gonna be a good leader, because people are gonna tell. And when he speaks what he says, when he says what he says, he means it. I have a child with autism, and I don't have to worry, because Michael has always been there, every step of the way. And that he doesn't have to do. And that tells you what type of person he is. And when he does what he says and he goes along his ways, you respect that, because he says he's going to do it. And he makes you feel proud, because he knows that he's doing it because he loves you and he cares. And so when you guys go out in the business world, you're not going to always be the boss, like Michael said. And you do have to treat people with respect. And you're not always going to be the smartest in the room and the best and the brightest. But if you're a good boss and you're a good person, you can be like Mike. Well, you're going to be who you are. But I know at the end of the day that this is a good man. And he has a good family. He has a good wife. He's got good kids. Friends are good. Never has he ever betrayed anybody. Never. You know what he does behind closed doors? I don't know. But you should really, really take this to heart. I mean, seriously, because this world is cruel out there. But when somebody comes in here and gives you their time and sisters show up, it's serious. I mean, it's something to think about. It's something to think about. And he's a good guy. And he's a hard worker, too.
$10 out
Well, the only reason why I say that is because I'm so proud of him. And you want to be proud of your family.
Thanks, Peggy.
Okay, so I can leave.
I think many of these students have a cousin or an aunt or a neighbor or an uncle who also can be that role model.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a lot of what you're trying to bring out. you
Yeah.
know? There's people in our lives, you know, it's just taking the time to not look down, but to look and find them.
That raises a question. Man, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as leaders, and do you see yourself as the kind of person that, in fact, has an interest in wanting to make a difference in the lives of people, make a difference in the lives of your community? Come on, guys, talk, please. I'd like to have other people.
Well, I basically see myself as being a leader, but I feel like my time management is off, kind of.
Yeah.
And which is bad, because I'm a big procrastinator. And I like to procrastinate. It's hard, and I've been doing that since I've been in college.
Okay.
So I've been working on that, but I have a real supportive family, and they tell me, like, hey, procrastination isn't going to get you anywhere. But it's hard. What do you do? How do you manage your time if you run so many different businesses? How do you manage all that? Like, how do you do that? What do you do?
So, thank you for asking. You just do. You just do. I think you really do from a planning standpoint. You know, for years, I was, I still swim. I'm a swimmer. And I'm still a competitive swimmer, but for 20 years, I swam with a group up in Indianapolis. I was up at 4:17 in the morning. I was in the cold water at 5 o'clock. And so my day was always regimented. Very regimented in terms of, again, when I did things. And I don't have to do that now, but I still wake up, my biological clock, it says that I get up early in the morning. But I'm also go to bed at 8 o'clock at night. I'm wiped. I really am. I'm wiped out at night. And God forbid if I have my red wine, I'm really white. Yeah, not to talk, no, I'm not gonna tell my story. So it's, you know, it's a matter of really, again, the whole planning process. Where again, if it's not done on paper a lot of times, then it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So you plan your day out. And that way you minimize the procrastination. I'm calling on you. Yeah, don't turn around, sister. So the question is, how do you see yourself in terms of, again, leadership? Do you, is that something that, do you see yourself as a leader? Do you see yourself as someone who, again, really is looking forward to wanting to give back, make a difference in the lives of others in the community?
Well, to the first question, my family is very outgoing, and my father is a public speaker, so I always view my brothers and my father as like a leader, but myself, not so much. But I'm working on it, but I do want to make a difference, especially, I don't know, in the fashion industry.
Okay. Why? Why?
Oh.
Why do you want to make a difference? I told you my little story.
I guess because I grew up in this time period where I wasn't as accepted because I was Muslim, and I used to wear a scarf, but I didn't feel like anybody really understood, like, what I was going through. So I always wanted to speak out for people who couldn't do it themselves. And I mean, God, I'm sorry, I'm so nervous.
You're doing great.
So I took my scarf off, my senior year of high school, but I still want to talk about, the Islamophobia that's happening and the things that are going on, like, the shooting the other day that occurred that was just tragic. So I don't know, I want to make a difference in regards to that.
So do you have your own voice? Do you think you have a voice?
Yes, I do.
Do you?
Yes,
You sure?
I'm positive.
Good. Then use it. You got to realize that you're just as smart, just as capable. If you don't think that you are, just as smart, just as capable. For a long time, I didn't realize that. I had to realize I had a voice. I had to work on my shyness. I had to work on my communication skills. I still have to work on that. But you know what? You got a voice. You're falling asleep. So I'm picking on you, sister. So, leadership.
Well, for me, I guess, I know I grow every single day. I always learn something new from everyone. But, I know in high school, I didn't really realize I was kind of a leader in a way until I graduated. But, I was an all-year-round athlete, and I was captain on all 3 teams, and I was president my junior and senior year. And, my goal for high school wasn't to be in, just one group of friends, My goal was to be friends with everyone, and I accomplished that, That was the biggest, coolest thing that I did in high school. I don't know, whatever, but, so I guess that, helped me become, develop into a leader and, know what I want, my passion now is to go back and teach at my high school. So I
what
want
do
to
you
give
think?
back to my community.
So I'm going to interrupt you because I really want to call on other folks. So forgive me, okay? Before we have to close this. What are your criteria in terms of what makes up a good leader? And what criteria that you described do you possess?
I think a good leader doesn't just worry about themselves, but they worry about bringing the best out in others.
Okay.
And just making others happy and it's not just about you, it's about others.
And is that you?
I feel like I work on that every day, It's really important.
And how is it? Are you at 8% there? Are you 90% there?
I never know.
What do you think?
That's what I work on. I don't know.
What do you think?
I'm sure I'll say 80%.
There you go. Okay. Go ahead.
I think that I'm on track to be, hopefully a good leader.
Okay.
But because I know what it takes to be a good leader, I know that it takes the willing potential to know that you can always be better.
Yeah.
For example, the unlimited potential for growth as a leader. You always can learn something, so you'll never be a complete leader.
Okay.
To me, that's my personal opinion, because you always can learn something, whether it's from others, whether it's from
Very
experience.
good.
You always have the
Very
potential to learn something.
Very good. Keep it up.
Now, one small question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You get a long answer.
From your perspective,
Yes.
could you narrow it down to 5 traits that you believe are ideal for a good leader?
Okay, I think I gave some of those, but as I talk about integrity,
Okay.
Honesty,
Okay.
character,
Mhm.
strong work ethic, check your ego at the door. Cool. What's your name?
Alexis.
I'm messing with you, you know that, right? I'm messing with you, okay. What do you think the criteria are for a good leader? And which ones do you possess?
I think that the most important criteria for a leader is charisma. If
Okay.
you aren't doing something meaningful, people aren't going to want to follow you, and people aren't going to want to respect you for what you've done. But I also think that determination is very important for a leader, and also they have to be knowledgeable. If you're knowledgeable, you're more confident, and everything that you do in your leadership will be portrayed to all your followers.
And which ones of those do you possess? All of them? Or just 3 of the 4?
I would like to think so.
And the class opinion is?
I mean, I would hope that. Personally, I think I do, but I mean, I guess that's up to the people that are around me, so.
We're gonna get back to those folks. We're gonna call them. Lady with the green fingernails. Now, what's your name?
My name is Shayla.
Shayla. Okay.
Yeah. So far, I think.
Criteria, so the question, so you know, we've got another 7 minutes. So the question is, agree, disagree, what are your criteria for what do you think makes a good leader, and then do you possess those?
I agree with Antonio and Alexis about the criteria. Another criteria that I would suggest is passion,
Yeah,
because you have to have the passion and want to work on that particular topic, and you have to know about it. So, like with me in particular, I believe in self-worth and self-improvement. So I'm soon starting a nonprofit organization, basically to help young girls know about self-worth and self-improvement, so that they can be better leaders. And I'm very passionate about that, so I believe that I will excel in that.
how many people in fact volunteer or mentor people? And volunteer like in a not-for-profit, mentor people? Put your hands up high. Good, great. What's your name?
Kurt.
Kurt. Stand up, Kurt, please. Mr. All-American. That's a good-looking guy right there. Right? Kurt,
Yes, sir.
you got the looks. Okay, there are places and things that you can do that some of these folks won't be able to do. Okay, they really are. And so when you talk about leadership, and you talk about how you're going to look at maybe reaching back, making sure that, again, you're going to maybe be inclusive, is that important to you? Not important. When you climb the corporate ladder, or you go up and do your own thing, you know, is that important, or do you just want to make money? Do you just want to be focusing on, again, establishing your career and focus on self?
I've never been the type of person that would be motivated by money.
Okay.
So, and I think up to this point, everything I've done
Yeah.
in my life, like for every accomplishment I've had, I've always given back something. So like, for example, I was a competitive figure skater for like 10 years and went to nationals and all that. and I volunteered at the skating club to put on, you know, the ice show or whatever, or I help my friends' kids learn how to skate. And then when I came here and I'm a senior this year, it's my last semester here, and doing like the service learning stuff and learning how to be a leader, I took that knowledge and I volunteered on my own time. I volunteer at the Heidelberg Project
Okay.
in Detroit.
Which is what?
The
Art.
it's a
Art house, the house in there.
yeah, it's like a
Okay.
non-profit, or I don't know if you've ever been to Heidelberg Street or not, but it's like this big outdoor art exhibit, and it's teaching the young people in the Detroit community how to engage in the creative process to, you know, as an outlet for what's going on in their lives in
Okay.
their city. So
Okay, the name rings a bell. Okay.
it's really cool.
Tyree Dyke is the,
Yes.
Tyree Dyke is down by, on Elliott, and Gratiot, near area.
Okay. I remember the
It's
name.
extra, you see, you know why, you might have heard it, the sad thing is, the last 6 months, there's been like 4 fires, is that how many you think it is?
Wow.
And that there's all the, buildings that have external artwork, a lot of it has to do with, a lot of their stuffed animals and children's toys, so it's
Okay.
really focused on kids. It's nationally known, so you probably have read about it, and you're just not clicking the name right now.
Okay, okay. Super, thanks for.
But anyway, I was saying, like, helping them engage in the creative process to overcome a lot of the hardships they face. And like, I think that creativity is something that's more important to my generation than it was to yours,
Okay.
which one thing you said that really, like, I kept thinking about was how a lot of people of your generation view us as being lazy and entitled and sitting in our parents' basements doing nothing, but I kind of have a lot more faith in my generation than that. Like, I
Great.
think we just place more of an emphasis on creativity. So if we're sitting in our parents' basement, we're coming up with ideas on how to channel But I'm serious. I'm not sitting in my parents' basement. I support myself, but I'm just saying, like, I know a lot of people, like a lot of good friends of mine at previous jobs that are servers in
Yeah.
restaurants because they have $30,000 in student loans and they can't have a career that they're passionate about and support themselves. You know, these people are creative people, and it's unfortunate that they can't be creative leaders. They can't, you know, but
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. But I think we're transitioning more towards that. So.
That is great feedback. Thank you, sir. Thanks for.
I have a question, do you think?
No, because I think we're almost to the end.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
3:50, he's gonna go be the president at 3:30, so we can keep him here till 3:26, but 4 minutes to walk over the issue. Probably not. So maybe one more question from
But
Lauren.
can I say something first?
Yes.
I know you too because I coach you. And I have to say, I think you're better leaders than you know, and I think that goes for a lot of you because at the beginning of this class, Tony, you asked me, can we go to practice early? Can I come early? Because we want to work on some things and we want to improve our skills. That is leadership to me, that you say, we want to come on our own and we want to work on things and we want to improve and we want to show the team that we're leaders. So I think that you guys are really like, you are living this more. Yeah, you are. I mean, you're living it more than you know, and I know you guys, so I can say that, but I think it's true for us. But,
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
no, it's true. It's very true. But my question is, you said you've learned a lot from poor leaders. So what if you're in a situation where you're working for a poor leader, or you're on a committee with a poor leader? You know, how can you learn from that, and how can you help to turn that situation around?
That's
And
good.
instead of just being like frustrated by it.
You have to manage. You have to manage poor leaders. Just like I think to some degree you manage good leaders, but with good leaders, you know, the difference is that it's not a lot of, again, effort that you got to put forth because they're trying to develop you. There's a track, you know, that they're going to collaborate with you on to try to, you know, get you to the next level. Okay, whether it's a particular job, whether in fact it's skill set development. With a poor leader, they don't do any of that. You've got to develop your own track and then say, boss, here's what I'm looking at doing, okay, and I need to have your feedback. And here's the reasons why, because they ain't going to be necessarily real intuitive if they will get it. So that's the issue where, in fact, you need to look at managing that poor leader. And the fact that, I tell you that the beauty is that you guys are so far ahead. You're talking about generation, my generation, because we would not even think about asking a question like that. And that's why I said you're so much smarter. You're so much more intuitive on some things, because again, you process things, I said, a lot faster and a lot quicker, because you've been exposed. You really are. And so I'm glad that you, and that the beauty, thank you for this session, thank me. Thank you, because rarely do I have an opportunity to hear from young people. My kids are older, and my grandson speaks in Wookiee talk. So, and I have business conversations. So I hope this free flow of exchange of information from an old guy to you guys, and then, but more critically, you to me. That's why I wanted to cut off the faucet and hear what you folks had to say. It's so important. But this experience that we just had, an experience that when you talk about from a good leadership standpoint, you want to always engage with people that you work with. There needs to be that dialogue with saying, what's your view? Where do you want to go? What's your thoughts on this issue? That's really important. And again, as I say, repeatedly, this works in the family as well as it works in business. It really does. That's the beauty of it. I think, again, the whole development process when you talk about leadership. So I really have enjoyed this, and I really wish you folks the best. And my last parting words are, make a difference. Really, if anything I've said, if anything resonates, make a difference in the lives of people that you care about. It's so critically needed. I partnered with Jalen Rose to start a charter school here, and we're now going on our fourth year. So we've got our first graduating class. And it's been tough work. But we have 120 kids that we started with, and we've got 93 of them graduating. 56 of them have already been accepted to 4-year school. Another 17 or 18 have been accepted to 2-year schools. These kids they're wonderful children. They don't even come close academically measuring up to you folks. But guess what? Many of these kids are going to do something with their lives. And if we weren't there, if we didn't do this, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, not to talk about money, a lot of money, then I think that these kids would have had maybe some missed opportunities. And so why did we do this? Why did I invest $500,000? Because I want to make a difference. Dolores Davis made a difference in my life. I want to make a difference in someone else's life. I challenge you to make a difference in someone else's life. And you individually, collectively, you need to write a check for $5 to this university. $3.50, I don't care. Write a check, and you ain't got to wait till you graduate. Write a check now. This university needs your help. Thank you. I got to write a check.